And if the United States is not going to go in and defend Baghdad for that government and for that country, and I don't think we should, and the Iranians volunteer to do it, I would not be opposed to that at all. But we ought to know if the Iranians go in there, they're not likely to be leaving soon. I think they can probably defend Baghdad. But that, along with the Shia south of Iraq, will make for an Iranian-Iraqi alliance, and I think Iraq will come apart.
Pat Buchanan appearing earlier on America's Forum saying basically if the Iranians want to get involved, let them get involved. That's going to be next. Welcome back, everybody. Mariana Mancuso joins us again from politicalhype.com. Also, David Patten from Newsmax.com joins us. Start with you this time out here. I don't know about you, but certainly after living the history of the last 10, 20 years, 40 years maybe with Iran, to hear anybody say, we need to get the Iranians involved, I just kind of said, it's kind of, really? We want to go there? That had to be just a little bit of a shock to hear anybody say that out loud.
Sure, and you're hearing it more and more, and the comparison is being made to World War II and Joseph Stalin, that we sort of worked with him to try to overthrow Hitler. But, you know, that's kind of a stretch. You don't really want to find yourself where you have to deal with people like that. I do think that Pat Buchanan has a good point, that there may be a real politic in the short term here in terms of what we have to do to drive these insurgents back. But let us not forget that it was only a couple of years ago here that we had Iran pouring these improvised explosive devices across the border with the intent goal of dismembering and killing as many American servicemen as they possibly could. Those are the people who we're now going to be doing a deal with. The other issue, what does that do to our nuclear negotiations with Iran?
Which, of course, as far as Iran is concerned, we don't have the nuclear bomb, and we're not going to make one. That's exactly, the smile says it all right there. You can't even see it. But it certainly comes down to that, I guess, Mariana, because Pat Buchanan may indeed have a point, because they're there, they're on the ground, they know the conflicts, they know the different tribal situations. They can probably read the tea leaves a little bit easier when we can. So let's play it from the other side of the book here. Why not let them get involved and help us? If it means, I'm going to throw this out to you right now, if it means saving one American life, I guarantee there's a lot of people out there who would say let the Iranians do whatever they want, let them walk away.
Absolutely. You know, like you had mentioned, bringing up Stalin, we worked with Stalin to defeat Hitler, and sometimes you have to kind of grit your teeth and work with your enemy to get the other enemy and take them down, and we have to really find where we can to form allies to go in and stabilize the region and take down ISIS and really work to secure Baghdad, because there is, like I had said previously, Benghazi too in the making, and we need to stop that from happening.
But there is a bit of an intellectual inconsistency here, which is when ISIS is in Syria and they're fighting Assad, then we kind of like what they're doing to the extent that they're against Assad. They cross a border that really doesn't exist. It's there in name only. Now they're fighting the government of Iraq. Now they're our enemies. And how do you explain that sort of intellectual inconsistency on the global stage? It's sort of an issue.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Right.
Yeah,
the famous, do you want to hear that?
The famous calculation in the Middle East. The problem is the enemy of my enemy, who's my friend today, may have been my enemy yesterday and may again be my enemy tomorrow. And that is, let's be realistic, that's what's going to happen with Iran. It's only a matter of time.
If you're going to talk about realism, let's take it one step further. Between Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, there is not going to be, certainly in the next few years, possibly in the next 10 years, maybe in the next 20 years, maybe longer, where we can trust all those countries together. It just isn't going to happen. I don't think there's any confidence that anybody has.
And we have to find a way to at least stabilize the situation, and the Obama administration knows this. If people's gas, the price of a gallon of gas goes up 50 cents, $1 a gallon, and meanwhile we worked so hard, $2 trillion and 5,000 U.S. lives lost in Iraq, and it's all flushed down the toilet, Americans are going to be furious.
The other thing on this that I thought was interesting, Tony Blair, whom I have a great respect for, and a lot of things that he has said, a lot of way that he was in charge in the United Kingdom, he accused critics of the war of Iraq, and I'm going to just read this here, this comes from The Independent, trying to willfully claim the current crisis in the country is a result of the original invasion. Mr. Blair rejects claims that he was to blame, saying, if the West had not rid Iraq of Saddam Hussein, the crisis in the Middle East would be worse. Do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely, I do. I think that this time, in looking back and blaming the original, charge in is just completely not helpful. We need to actually now look to what's going to be a bigger issue, and we have to be able to figure out how to solve the problem now instead of looking back and saying, again, this is the same thing we see Obama. The Obama administration spent the first term blaming Bush for everything, and we can't do that anymore. That's not going to be helpful. We have to look for a solution, you know, and if it involves us working together with Iran to find that solution, then we need to do that. We cannot forget that in the 80s, we actually worked with Saddam and Osama bin Laden, and we were all working together, and then all of a sudden everyone turned on us, and then they became our enemies. So this could be another situation where they become our enemies, but you know what? We have to charge forward, and we have to figure out how to secure this and to stabilize the momentum that's going on over there.
Just to jump in there, there's another factor at work here. It's not just past presidential policies, and it's not just the conflict in Syria either. We've got to look at who's in charge in Iraq. Nouri al-Maliki, who has been associated with corruption, certainly, has been really attacking on a sectarian basis people of the Sunni faith. In fact, the vice president of Iraq's out of the country.
Well, he went out and had the Sunni vice president. He had the Sunni vice president
sentence.
arrested within 24 hours of when he got into power.
And currently there's a death sentence over that official's head. Of course, he's had to flee the country. So when you're doing that kind of thing, you could imagine if it were that bad in the United States, everybody goes to the corners, everybody gets their AK-47s and grenades, and then they have it out. And that's part of our problem right now. That's a big part of the problem we face. It's the incompetence of this government, which, again, refused to sign a forces agreement with the United States.
Let's talk about incompetence for a moment here, because it's certainly a great word that gets tossed around Washington easily, and I think sometimes it's used perfectly. But there is incompetence that goes back. Can we not all agree that this is not something that's incompetent yesterday or a month ago? This is going back. Our governments, and I want to make sure I put the S in there, has shown a propensity for incompetence when it comes with dealing with the Middle East. No matter who we talk to, no matter how much we try to get it right, no matter how many scholars we throw in there, Dave, we always seem to get it wrong. I don't think there's any faith the American people have that you can find somebody and do it correct, no matter who the government is at this point.
And I think, Ed, that's why when you look at the polls, basically Americans are very, very reluctant to get back involved in a huge, long, extended war, perhaps, or even a short conflict that they wonder if they're going to get dragged in and it's going to become the next Vietnam. The sad fact is that our leaders have not shown that they're able to quickly and effectively prosecute this kind of conflict, defend America's interests, and then get everybody out in a clean way. A lot of that has to do with the region, the sectarian religious conflicts in the region, but a lot of Americans look at that and they say, you know what, let's pull out, let's not have nothing to do with those people, let them kill each other, and then let's just protect our homeland so that if the radicals do come over here, that we'll be able to fight them from Fortress America. The problem, obviously, is that 9/11 showed us that policy, sort of a legal law enforcement attitude towards terrorism, really doesn't work to defend America.
So,
No, absolutely doesn't.
So here we go now. We've got a couple of minutes left, and we know what the problems are. And I think, certainly from my perspective, I'm always telling people, stop blaming George Bush, stop blaming Bill Clinton, stop blaming George Bush Sr., whatever. Let's deal with right now, because we can't go back. We must go forward one way or the other. I'll start with you then right now. We're talking about airstrikes. We're talking about some limited, perhaps. Okay, where do we go? Your opinion right now.
We go in with airstrikes, and we work with the Arab League of Nations to strengthen our presence in that region, in the Middle East. And that does not mean boots on the ground. I don't think that that's an appropriate way of using our troops.
I don't think anyone's going to say that.
No, I think that we go in with airstrikes, and we work with the Arab League of Nations, and we formulate a plan. But we have to show that we have strength back in that region, and that just because we pulled all of our troops out when we came home, we have our eye on you, and we are a strong player, and we are back on the world stage to lead a foreign policy for the entire world.
But you think there has to be some sort of a backup by saying, all right, look, we said we weren't going to leave anybody there, but maybe we should leave a force there. There are some people right now claiming that you should leave something there as a deterrent.
I think that we don't go into that until we try to use the airstrikes first. I think leaving people there, unfortunately, while we should have done that in the beginning, we can what if, should have all day long, but right now I think that needs to be the final resort after we use airstrikes and work with the Arab League of Nations to form some type of resolution.
I agree. That horse has left the barn. The opportunity to leave a residual force, stabilize that country, has long passed us now. Now we have sectarian conflict. Now we have a country that's breaking up. Now we have these jihadi forces just, a few miles or maybe less than 20 miles away from Baghdad. So the idea that somehow we're going to put 10,000 American troops in there and that there'll be anything but targets is probably not realistic. The other thing that we need to do is we need to look at who's been funding this insurgency, who has been fueling this fire. And it turns out it's Turkey, it's Saudi Arabia, it's also Qatar, countries that are at least nominally are supposed to be our allies, and they have just been pouring a tremendous amount of money and resources to really fan this fight against Assad, who after all is an Alawite, which is essentially saying that he's a Shia. So again, we go back to the religious conflict. But those countries that started this forest fire, they've got to be involved in getting it put out.
Exactly. David Patten, Mariana Mancuso, thanks so much for spending a little extra time
Thanks
here
for
today.
having me.
We have discussed this now from a lot of different angles. Now, America, it turns to you, because what you need to do now is tell us on social media exactly what it is that you think we should be doing right now. Don't go backward. Don't go backward. Completely go forward from this day forward. Cogent, intelligent ideas. Twitter, email, Facebook. This is Midpoint, where every day we question everything.